This video is a replay of a trade I took today. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I am not a financial advisor, and trading entails risk. Just because I got these results today doesn't mean that I can get these every day, nor that you can. Remember, the entire premise of the investing project and the $1 million experiment is that I am not an expert, and yet I am learning how to do this. So for heaven's sake, don't just blindly copy me. Instead, find a mentor, someone who is an expert, and join their community. Pay for their mentorship. This approach has worked very well for me, and it likely will for you too. So use this video partly as education and partly as inspiration. After all, if I can learn this, you can too. So no trades today, but there was an interesting setup, and I think it was worth mentioning because sometimes the best trade is the one you don't take. And so I want to go look over this again. If you recall, I'm going to zoom in on the Y2 on the Russell, the M2K. If you recall, yesterday we had a trade where it had pulled back very nicely right into this level here, 2860-ish, and then we had a really nice pop and made $100. But it was a nice pop up to about the 50%, almost the 50% of this move. And what it looked like on the surface of it was something similar today. In fact, it really looked like it more if you look at the 5-minute. You could say, oh yeah, that's really coming down. Looks like that's a replay of that. But I beg to differ slightly. The main difference here is that instead of a gradual, these are the 15-minute, instead of a number of 15-minute bars coming down, we have just this huge fall off a cliff coming down. It admittedly to a very similar level with a bit of a bounce, but this didn't seem to me like it was the same kind of thing. It looked like it sort of in a very general sense, but it actually looked a bit more like it was still going to be doing something a little different, like it was going to be maybe not finished its decline yet. So I ended up not taking it. Now normally the trade would be put in a buy right above the top of this green candle and get in and go long, and it would have worked to a very limited extent, but let me just play this and we can see what actually would have happened here. So it would have gone into profit for a little bit, but you can see there's a couple of things, there's a couple of problems. First of all, the VWAP, the volume weighted average price, is right here, and so it's got that as a bit of headwind. The entry level would have been only right about where my cursor is, which isn't great, and you can already see right at the VWAP, and it's kind of done. So the risk to reward, the reward to risk ratio wasn't great. But let's let this unfold a little bit because it becomes a much more interesting thing in retrospect as we look at it. And I'm just going to let this play for a little. At this point, we're already below the entry price, and it's still going down. And before long, it gets right back down to this low again right here. But let it keep going because this ends up having a much lower outcome overall. And in fact, in retrospect, you would look at this potentially and say, this wasn't a long at all. This was a short. And this was the pullback from the short that could have got you in to a short position. And that's true. The problem with that is that by the time this set up, my trading day was over. I typically trade the first 90 minutes. So, from 6:30 Pacific to about 8 o'clock Pacific. By this point, we're already at 9 o'clock. And it's, of course, the bottom's falling out by this point. But that's the reason why this wasn't a short, because I simply wasn't trading anymore. But it probably would have been. Anyway, the key message to me and to you is this is not the same as this. Even though at first glance it looks like it's trading off into the same level, the reality was that the nature of this sell-off was much more aggressive. And in other words, this wasn't done selling off. So anyway, just an interesting lesson. Sometimes the best trade is the one you don't take, and that was certainly the case for today.